Hey, people. Kevin here. I'm sorry, I had to do it. Someone did it to me earlier today. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Better Opinion. I'm your host, Kevin. I am once again joined by my co-host, Mansur. Hey, Mansur.
How are you doing?
I'm pretty good, man. How are you?
So what horrible thing are you doing now? Like, who are you torturing, et cetera, et cetera? Normally, it's something horrible comes after that.
No,
that
I'm doing great.
Oh, it's like, oh, no, like, you're not murdering people. It's like, no
I've committed
skinning.
zero crimes. Wait a second. No, that's you. You're the one. You're
No,
the
no,
skinwalker.
wait, what are you talking about?
No, this is inappropriate. You're projecting your crimes onto me. I'm a good boy.
Listen, I've put a little bit of skin under that jacket. It's just to make you feel like
This is a sweater,
Well,
Mansur? This is a sweater?
you know, potato.
I don't think these two things are at all identical.
They both warm you.
They are distinctly different.
But you know what? Just like we're basically the same in all the crimes that we commit,
We're not.
You have a topic today.
I'm not going to let you get away from this one, but we will shelve it for now because I do have something to talk about. I do, but not letting you escape on this one, buddy.
I think I don't have anything to be ashamed of.
You should. You should not feel that. You should feel the opposite.
Should is a word that is that is horrible, not progressive at all. I do all the things that make me feel good, and I feel like what I do on a daily basis makes me feel very good about myself.
Oh, trust me, we know. We know that you feel good about it. You just shouldn't. Anyway, I have been thinking. Mike's dying over there.
Stop dying, Mike. You need to.
I was thinking about the fact. I was thinking about immersion. I was thinking about immersion in video games. Now, when I say immersion, this is important because people make a lot of assumptions about it. So I'm going to be a little long-winded. I hope you guys will stick with me here when I say immersion, because I don't just mean I've loaded up Call of Duty 42 and they've got a long cut scene with all of their original characters, do not steal, where they're going to do some action man shit and they're going to say some shit and then it's going to drop you in. That's not what I mean by immersion. When I talk about immersion, I'm going to talk about a few different examples. Okay. So when I talk about immersion, I mean things like when I'm playing an MMO, and MMOs are dead. I wish they weren't. I'd like some new games, you know? But when I think of immersion, I think of, like, for example, if I play World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy 14 now, a lot of the times I don't feel like I'm experiencing a class fantasy. I think WoW does a little better job, but even then there's a lot of homogenization, but at least visually the classes feel really different. In Final Fantasy 14, I've played Final Fantasy and subscribed to Final Fantasy 14 since 1.0, so I am speaking as someone who has supported the game for a long time. It's sort of reached a point where everything kind of feels samey. It feels like all the casters are the same, all the ranged DPS are the same, all the melee DPS are the same. It's just a different light show, and it's not even that different of a light show. There's lots of bubbles, lots of slashing lights. Your character does a bunch of flips and shit, and so there's a missing class fantasy. And games like Stalker are very immersive, and why is that immersive? Because you feel like you are the thing that it says you are. You are a guy. You are surviving. This is an apocalyptic area. You are scavenging. You are exchanging used parts for used parts. You're repairing things that instead of getting brand new. That is immersive. And while some games are still fairly immersive, I feel like a lot of games kind of feel like an arcade.
I agree with you. In Final Fantasy, I remember I specifically chose a Lalafell Paladin because a small guy who tanks a lot of damage was very funny to me. But I found that most of the Paladin stuff really only comes up in your side story, and the side story is not interesting. It's all just like it's like, remember this mechanic that you had? Use it. and the paladin is not very fun. And people will like argue, oh, well, the problem is that you chose a paladin, an unfun class. No, the problem is that the paladin is an unfun class they kept in the fucking game. What?
That's true. That's true. No, that's true. Like you chose the wrong class. Well, maybe it just should be fun.
Yeah, why is that class in the game if it's not fun?
Right. And my thing is like, so why did I want to talk about it today? Is that I like immersion. Why do I play role play games like Space Station 13? Why do I play Dungeons and Dragons? Why do I play these games where RP, some people look at RP and they kind of cringe. They go, oh, that's like weird, right? But like when you look at all those people who play, I've never played it. I played it once. I didn't really get it. It was hard to get into, but what's it called? GTA RP.
Yeah.
I understand why people like it. Even if externally you're like, oh, this is like weird and cringy. It's like, right. But it's you feel immersed. You get into character. It's the same reason that I like, making YouTube videos on my other channel. I like to get into the voice, get into the character, get into the humor.
It's very reminiscent of when you were a child and you and your friends kind of built this fort to like fight against whatever imaginary thing. Part of the fun was building the fort and just being in this place that you and your friends felt were safe. The other part was acting out whatever danger was against you.
I have no problem admitting, as a little child, I think I was like 11, I had this friend, her mom and my mom went to school together, and when they were young, and so we were friends, and they owned a pretty big swath of property in the woods, so it was a very fun playground for kids. Dad was like good at woodworking, so he'd like make us like toy swords and stuff, and we both loved JRPGs. Final Fantasy VII. So we used to just role play being characters in a JRPG out in the woods. You know what I mean? And that was so fun as a little kid playing pretend. There was an area where they had like a little campsite, and her dad would just like set us up like a little fire pit, and we would like role play like we were camping out as JRPG characters at this campfire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was really fun. We would like fill a backpack with like survival goods, but all we would do is like, it's just over there.
Yeah.
But it was far enough from the house because we're in the woods that it felt like we were.
Well, you're trying to have fun.
Yeah.
It's like, it doesn't really matter. Like we've said before, the actual mechanics of what's happening doesn't matter. It's the idea that you can take your mind and put it into the scenario and have fun with it. And there's no danger involved. None of the danger of like, oh, people are actually going to come and kill me is part of it. So you can have fun with it.
Yeah. And I think that that was really fun as a kid, and as an adult, I still like that game of pretend. I just like it in a video game. Or as a tabletop JRPG, a tabletop RPG.
You know what show captures that very well? Star Trek.
Ooh, yeah.
On the holopad, whenever people go in and like, it's like whenever what's the Picard goes in and does his favorite, like, I'm gonna be a detective. It's like we're all gonna dress up and like we're gonna play different roles and we're gonna like go through this murder.
Yeah.
And that always seems so cool to me because you have this whole play set. You can go to like your favorite fictional place and just act out your favorite parts. That's what RPGs are. That's what like Vanderlyn is. That's what a lot of different things is. Like there's no real consequence, but you get to tell a story and it's yours.
Yeah,
to have
exactly.
Fun with.
It's very satisfying, and it. I feel like so often people are like, oh, check out this game, check out that game. And it just feels like there's no chance to get immersed. I was thinking about this. I was recording. It's too late now to go back because I don't want to re-record a whole thing. But I recorded a sort of a shorter voiceover for a quick review of Abiotic Factor. And in it, I talk about how I enjoy survival slop, even though it is often slop. And the reason is because there is something immersive about building a base and surviving in it. There's something that tickles a certain part of my brain that I feel really honed in, tunnel visioned on that experience for while it lasts, that nothing else gives, because everything else wants me to just like Ramirez, do the thing.
I don't like survival crafts, but one thing I agree it does very well is it forces you to like work with the environment. The environment is always part of the storytelling, and you have to go out and do things with it. You have to constantly be interacting with the woods around your area. And sometimes if the woods are gone, as consequence of you deforesting everything to create your giant mansion, you may have to either plant more trees or you may have to deforest another section.
Yeah, well, and you know, I'm not saying this as ill. You know, we have different tastes in games, and
Yeah.
you know, you just mentioned you don't really like survival crafts. You know, you're really into things like Hades,
Yeah.
whereas I'm not. You know, those kinds of games don't really get me. But that's because those games are. I'm not saying they're not good, and some people may say they're very immersed in the story. But when I talk about immersion,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about investment in the plot or liking the characters. I played through the first Hades. I liked it well enough. You know, I wouldn't play it more than once like other people, but you know, that's just my tastes, and I like the story. I like the characters, but it is not immersive the way a lot of other things can be. And that's the direction I feel a lot of video games go, and the ones that really want to immerse you never get finished.
Yeah, I agree with you. Hades, the immersion is supposed to come from the story, but you're not really feeling like part of it. You don't really interact with it too much.
The story happens as a consequence of you playing the arcade.
Yeah, it's the most of the game is mechanics.
Right.
Most of the game is mechanics, and you have to at some point enjoy the mechanics. Otherwise, you might as well just watch videos of the story, because that you'll get better enjoyment out of that rather than trying to force yourself through the mechanics to get to the part you like.
Right, and that's not a criticism of Hades from me. It's trying to sort of express the difference.
Yeah.
Because some people will say, well, no, I think this is very immersive. And it's like, that's not the kind of immersion I mean,
Yes.
right? I mean a very, for lack of a better term, role play experience where I'm really in it. I feel like I am the character. Some games that aren't even that kind of game, I think, did a good job of it. I remember Modern Warfare, Call of Duty before it became shit, really did a good job of actually making you feel, even if it's not realistic. I feel like Modern Warfare 1, you really felt like you were Soap. Yeah. You felt like you were Soap McTavish. And in the mission where you play as Captain Price with Macmillan going, you know, the all gillied up, that you felt like you were the guy. You know, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I also feel like you made a good point on our last podcast that may come before or after. I don't know. But you mentioned how Halo worked, where it's like there was a huge buildup. The cutscenes were to kind of build what you, the person playing Master Chief, were about to do. And then you got to do it. And that, in a way, felt immersive because you were doing the actions that progressed the story. And
the game felt very... I actually, it's funny. I was going to get to that because Halo, it's so funny. You read my mind. Halo was my other example of like, this game feels very immersive. I feel like I am Captain King off to fight the Alamaus, you know what I mean?
Really feel like Master Chief.
Yeah, I know, I did. I did. And 343 did the opposite. I don't feel like I'm Master Chief. I feel like I'm a plastic man.
That and the Batman Arkham series. Batman Arkham, I think, was probably the best superhero game because it was I feel like it got the closest you were ever going to get to how Batman operated. It felt like you had multiple different aspects of him. Detective mode was, I think, maybe someone can make a better version, but being able to go through like an area and try to figure out what happened, and then as part of the mission, like following someone's footprints based off of like clues you saw. It's like, oh, I found this scent. Let's find where Poison Ivy is.
Right.
That was very cool and felt a lot like what Batman would do. Right. And then you did it.
I agree, yeah. I didn't play a lot of them. I only played the first one, but I really liked the first one.
The first one, I think, is still great and still very well illustrates what happens. I didn't play Arkham Knight. Arkham City was also pretty good, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. You know, that's immersion, and I'm sure there are some examples that isn't the case, but it feels like every game that comes out. I've talked about this before, Phasmophobia. Now, Phasmophobia at this point feels like people have gamified it too much. But what really made it popular in the start, and because like there are two groups of people who really like Phasmophobia and people who just like kind of shit on it. Yeah. And I don't think the people who shit on it, they don't usually shit on it because it's actually bad. They're either mad because it was a flavor of the month or like it's just not exactly their thing. And I don't think those are really good criticisms. It's not the best game ever made, and there's been a million copies, but the truth was no one had ever made a cooperative ghost hunting simulator where the objective of the developer was not to do any specific thing, but instead to make you feel like you were investigating a really haunted house. The goal that he set out for was for you to feel like you were doing a ghost hunt, except instead of it being like Ghost Hunters, the TV show, where nothing ever happens that much. You know, it's like they see one shadow. Real ghost stuff happened, right? Yeah. And that was very original, and it was very immersive. The audio, the feeling of quiet isolation, the feeling like there could be something any second, you know, it was very immersive. And it's gotten more gamified as time got on. People understood the formula, you know. Eventually, it reaches a point where everyone understands the mechanics too much and it becomes arcadey. But for a while, that game was incredibly immersive and nothing like it existed. Horror games were always sort of linear horror experiences rather than sort of like a free form. I don't know. There's a lot of different behaviors a ghost can have. Like, you know, you're just going in to figure it out.
I like the idea of Phasmophobia. The problem is I think it's part of it is that I've worked with software too many times. I only saw the issue of I don't know how I'm supposed to do A to get B. And I had a hard time immersing myself because I feel like I did things and I didn't understand why it didn't get a result.
You know, that's sort of an interesting thing because on one hand, that was a problem the game had. And as time went on, you know, just remember the game started out as one guy.
Yeah.
It was never supposed to get that big as fast as it did.
I understand why it wasn't as good as it could have been. The problem is that kind of got in the way of me enjoying it.
Right, but you're not letting me finish my point.
Yeah.
So on one hand, that is a correct observation, is that like there were problems that over time they fixed, right? Just like certain interactions not happening. Now, there was a reason. Usually it wasn't a programming error. Usually it was like, okay, so you need to get like the ghost to step in the salt. But the ghost is actually physically present. They're just invisible. Yeah. And it needed to step in the salt. And to do that, it needed to path that way. And you have never successfully put the salt in its path. Now, maybe it passed over it, but the problem was that it was too sensitive to the hitbox of the salt. It didn't just trigger because the ghost passed through that square. It only triggered if its foot stepped on the same pixels that the salt was on, right? So these were some of the issues that happened. But the thing is that at the same time, there's a balancing act because once that was consistent, the game was ruined because your very desire for consistency is what removed the immersion because now it's mechanical. Now it's playing. Now you're just doing a Dark Souls speed run. Okay, well, I know that eventually the ghost will move down the stairs because the ghost moves between the upstairs and the downstairs. And no matter what, this is a wide enough frame for it to always step in the salt. So no matter what, I will eventually always get it if I put it right here. That's super mechanical. It's far better when you actually don't know the answer, even if sometimes it's frustrating.
I agree.
But this goes back to Hades. The kinds of games you play are incredibly mechanically intensive.
The part of it is it feels bad when it feels like nothing works. When it's like, oh, I've done a bunch of stuff. I'm on the easy mode because I'm just starting out. But like, what is supposed to work?
But even when the game is perfectly refined, sometimes you go, I don't know what else to do.
Yeah,
and that's ghost hunting, baby. Yeah. If you want to play a ghost hunting simulator, go watch a ghost hunting show. They spend 3 nights sleeping in a house, and all they get is one little shadow in a corner giving you the middle finger.
Yeah, I guess it's hard to understand. Part of it, a lot of it might be just me, but it's hard to think about if it's if what my complaint is really a bad thing, I suppose.
Well, that can be difficult. And keep in mind, I'm not really defending it. I'm more just trying to say like there's a balancing act between in the beginning, like I will 100% say that in the beginning there was problems with the game where things that should work didn't work, and it was like that needed to be fixed. And over time they did fix that. But there is definitely a line between things always working and things never working that is the sweet spot, because once it's too perfectly consistent, it stops being interesting and starts being just an arcade game, right? It's just input output. And part of immersion is experimentation, is imperfection, is having to really think about it and try. I think that different people are going to have different reactions to what makes something immersive for them based on the way they think. Like you said, you think like a programmer, you're an engineer. Engineers are problem solvers. I'm also a problem solver, but I'm a project manager. So the way I problem solve is abstract. The way you problem solve is specific. Right? It's a different way of thinking about the same problems. And you see that when you and I talk in private about almost any problem. You try to like mechanics out a solution, and I try to like concept out the solution. You know what I mean? So I think that when you ask yourself, is my way of viewing it is it a me problem or is it the game problem? Well, it can be both. It's just a matter of how much. This is a problem I think some people, I have other friends who I think sometimes get too caught up. They dislike one thing, and they let that one dislike paint over all the other parts of the experience as being bad when all the other parts are really good.
I think the problem is when I start to see the cracks of like, oh, I'm seeing this as a logic error in the programming, then the immersion starts to disappear.
That's a personal. I would say that you got to fix that, because you're gonna do that with every game.
Yeah, I'm forcing myself not to see that. When you showed me Redline, you told me this is purely visual, I tuned out the part of like thinking about the plot, and I was like, pretty pictures. That's what I did.
It's a musical and visual experience. The plot is silly, sometimes nonsensical. If you pick apart the plot, you are going to have a bad time, but that's not what makes Redline good. What makes Redline good is a guy named Sweet JP driving a Trans Am in a space race, and there is sick music and hand-drawn 60 frames per second.
Yes.
That's what makes Redline good.
And it looks so pretty.
It is so pretty. And it's the music is so good. Redline's music gets me pumped every time.
And that's something I'm learning to do. I'm trying to like separate this is an issue with the like this and this, because it's gotten in the way of so much thing. I've said this in a podcast before. The biggest problem I have is that I see something and I see the problems in it. And that's the hardest way to enjoy something. I'm missing out because now I'm just seeing flaws instead of enjoying the picture.
You know what? This is really interesting, because when I review things, I've had to learn to not talk about the negatives. The problem that I always ran into is that it's really easy for me to point out problems because I know that because I'm a problem solver. But when I want to talk about the good, it was hard to come up with why it was good, because the answer was I really enjoyed it. It was immersive. It was pleasurable. There's not a problem to be solved, so there's not a lot to talk about. Now, that's not correct. I could really try to be more wordy about why it was good. But when something is good, there's less things to point out about, because it's like it was good because in this area, it was both visually and mechanically aligned, and I found that very immersive. It's a lot harder to make more words out of that than in this area. The problem is that you can tell that there was less time spent on the environment, so it's more square, it's more linear. There's a lot more to say to describe the problem, because otherwise it's all the same. The complement is going to be the same everywhere. This area is designed well. But when you say not designed well, you have to explain that. My thought's not over, but not to interrupt your thought, but my point here is that the issue with for a lot of people is that when they talk about negatives, it's a problem for them, and then they're focused. So remember, I said I have other friends who do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm so focused on the bad that I can't react to the fact that 90% of it is good. Right now, you can ask me what I think of something, and I'll tell you about a ton of bad things, and then I'll go, "You think I hate this? It's a fantastic game, and I highly recommend it." Because even though I can point out that in Abiotic Factor, it's clear that the final sections of the game they put far less effort into it. They're far more frustrating. There's a lot of little details that really aren't as good about the later half of the game. I can talk about all that, and then I go, yeah, I put 100 hours in. Like, I really like this game, and I can tell you I like the base building. I think it's immersive. I think it's goofy in a fun way. I found the pacing for most of the game to be really, really good. I can say all of that, but I find that the more I like something, the easier it is for me to find the problems in it, but the problems don't make the game bad. The only reason I paid attention to the problems was because I liked it to begin with. I think other people's problem is that they haven't learned to do that. They haven't learned to go, despite its problems, I really like it. Instead, they go, there's a problem, and therefore I do not like it, even if there's a lot of good. And it's a mindset thing, in my personal opinion.
I think the problem with explaining good things is the good things already explained itself by simply being it. Because I've always felt if like a story is very good, me explaining it is not going to do it justice. You have to go see the story to understand at its fullest why it's great. Because me explaining it will just butcher it.
Right.
Because rather than it insists upon itself, it is what it is.
I hate the term "it insists upon itself," by the way. Does anyone else hate when a reviewer or someone says that? I hate "it insists upon itself." It feels so lazy. Everything insists upon itself.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike, you're the English major. I hate the term "insists upon itself."
Somehow I've never encountered that phrase until you said it a minute ago.
Really?
Really?
You live in a cave?
Yeah.
He's an English major, and he's never heard "insists upon itself." To me, that's like the reviewer go-to for I'm an idiot and don't know how to give criticism, so I'm just going to say it insists upon itself.
Okay.
I think I gave up on reviews before that became the new lazy phrase in vogue.
Okay, let me rephrase it a better. Instead of I am explaining to you why I am good and why you should be impressed, in its presentation, it does such a good job of conveying what it represents, and it does a good job of making you feel something. Feel something very good that there is nothing that I can tell you that can better represent what you will feel experiencing this piece of media or whatever it is, other than you just experiencing it. I feel like that's the hardest thing about trying to explain what's good about something, because there can be no better explanation than the thing itself.
Yeah, if I were going to say, I think that I agree with you and disagree with you. And the reason I disagree with you is because I think if I were going to describe someone who is really good at telling you why something is good, it's Mandalore Gaming. Mandalore Gaming is really, really good at both talking about he's really good at playing a game and talking about why it works and why it doesn't work. And when he talks about why it works, man, he's so good. I mean, in both ways. He's so good at describing both, but he's really good at explaining why it's good, why the story is good. And I think that's harder to do, but I think he's good at doing it. I watched his Soma review recently. I loved Soma. It's not a particularly mechanically hard game, but it was really good.
Is it what I'm thinking? Is it that 2D like?
No, Soma's the 3D underwater one. It's kind of like a lot like Amnesia and stuff like that. But it's the one you're underwater. You wake up in this underwater facility. There's like black goopy shit and robots, and you're trying to figure out what happened to the surface world. You're trying to move between different underwater sites to meet different people and put the puzzle together of what happened. And there's like weird monsters that you have to avoid, and robots, mutated robot things. It's really cool. I really, really like Soma.
I don't think I've heard of it.
You should play it. It's quite good.
I'll take a look. I might wishlist it after this and see.
No, but it is a horror game, right? And it's really just about exploring and figuring out how to move from one room to the next without.
It sounds like a horror game. Don't worry, I got that.
but it's good.
Yeah.
I really like it, and it's not as. I think Amnesia had a lot more mechanics going on. You had an inventory, you had the insanity mechanic, and I think Soma has some problems. But overall, I think that it does a lot better job of being a full experience. There's a lot of I highly recommend if you're going to play the game, interact with different objects. You can get a lot of story just from picking up something, and then your character says something. Little decisions matter. That they don't matter a lot, but they matter. Little stuff like, did you answer the phone? They don't really change the story, but they can change certain events within the story. Just little dialogue moments.
Silent Hill, I remember used to do that well. Is like if you went into Silent Hill 2 and you looked at the knife a lot, that changed what happened at the end.
Yeah, Soma doesn't do that. But to give you like an early game example, hanging up or answering the phone will give. Did you send an email saying I'm going to be out to my boss? Okay, well then he's going to call you. If you answer the phone, if you sent the email, the boss is going to be like, oh, right. I remember about that. Or he's going to be like, well, you got to tell us this stuff, man. But you can also just not answer. You can also just not answer the phone. Yeah. It's just stuff like that, there's a part in the game where there's a little robot and he's friendly. And if you free him from where he's stuck, he will follow you around and help you skip a puzzle. Later, when you encounter him again, your character will react, oh, hey there, little guy, I didn't expect to see you. You will encounter him later no matter what, but if you encounter him later without helping him, your guy will react like, whoa, for a second before going, oh, okay, I'm not in danger. Because you've come to learn robots are bad, right?
Yeah. I like when games do that. And it's always disappointing when you do something and it doesn't change your interaction with the character. I think the biggest one is Sif in Dark Souls.
Oh yeah.
If you free him and you meet him later, he's just sad, but you don't.
But he's still gonna try to fight you. Yeah.
That was always disappointing. Learning that was how that interaction worked. Because
yeah, it feels like what happened is someone said, well, we still need the boss fight to exist, instead of going, maybe the boss fight just doesn't have to happen.
Yeah. Or maybe they just didn't want to code the area to be different.
I don't know. I feel like if you're going to code a completely different cutscene of the dog's reaction, you can take the extra time to make the boss fight not happen.
Yeah.
It's probably not that hard to say the boss fight just doesn't happen. Turning it off and just having Sif hang out probably isn't a very hard coding
and let
experience.
me pet him. Let me pet him, please.
Yeah, and maybe let me pet the dog. Yeah.
I don't like that, because even as horrible as a place Dark Souls is supposed to be in, there should still be some nice things. Because
if everything's shit, everything's normal.
Yeah, that's what I hate about a bunch of these storytellings. That's what I hated about Attack on Titan. Because at the beginning, everything's so depressing. Well, what's good about life? Why
makes this worth holding on to?
Yeah, why should I care? Why are you even fighting the Titans? It's like it's gonna happen again, and then someone else is gonna die horrifically. It's like I don't care about continuing the story because everything sucks, and
you're gonna get some haters for that one. But I agree with you.
I don't care about the story because everything sucks, and nothing. The main character doesn't have any plan to make it not suck.
Yeah, no, this is actually true. When I think of things where everything sucks, like Stalker, right? In the Stalker games, everything kind of sucks. Radiation everywhere, everything's kind of poopy. But why are you there? Well, you're there to make money, right? Or at least that's what you think you are, right? Well, in Stalker 1, that's what stalkers are there for. They're just there to make money. In Stalker 1, you're like, well, I have amnesia, and my objective is to figure out what the answer to that is. Yeah. But when you go, well, why is anyone else here in this piss hole? Oh, well, I'm here to get rich. right? Like this is a gold rush, right? But the gold is radioactive artifacts that give you superpowers.
You're still making a life for yourself.
Your objective, well, your objective is to figure out who you are and to find Strelok, but the theme is that everyone's there because, well, it's there is the potential for a positive outcome, at least in their heads. You know what I mean? And like in Stalker 2, why are you there? Well, you're there because your house got blown up. So you're going to go back to the zone using the artifact that you find. You're going to try to make it worth something again and then use the money from selling it to rebuild your home. Like there's a goal about why you're willing to brave the piss hole.
Yeah. My favorite, it reminds me, my favorite character in the Dark Souls 1 is the Onion Knight's daughter.
Oh yeah.
What she trying to do? She's trying to save her father. She has like a positive outlook. She's like better in her father in every way, but she still wants him to like come home and be with her. And that's why I always like that's my favorite character, because she's like looking forward to something and she's trying to achieve something good.
Well, and it's not to say that things can't be depressing. There's some people who are like, well, sometimes depressing, a post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, but there has to be
balance. You know, there has to be good to balance out the bad. Yeah.
Because if it's always bad, why not just kill yourself?
I mean, realistically, that's true. Like if things are always, it's kind of like the idea of if everyone's fantastic, no one's fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, the dichotomy of things is what makes it interesting. Yeah. I don't care about a superhero story where everyone's a superhero. I don't care about a world where things are always bad. I care about how they can be good. You know, what are we trying to achieve? Is there anything to achieve? I don't, you know, I remember I was talking about this when I ran I play D&D games, right? And when everyone in the party is a special snowflake, I often just want to play like a guy. Yeah. But when everyone's a guy, well, then I kind of want to play a special snowflake. And people go like, oh, well, now I want to be a special snowflake. I go, well, now it's not interesting. I remember I had a character, his name. So there's a system that's very freeform that Mike knows. It's a homebrew system. It actually was invented at a club, I think at your college, right?
My friend's college.
Your friend's college, sorry. His friend's college. It was just like something that they made at like the tabletop club. It's called Depths. You've played it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we played it with you before. It's very free form, right? The thing about it is like, obviously everyone's going to make like a crazy wacko guy, right? But what you're making should be unique to you. Because I remember I made a character. His name was Billy, the greatest wizard ever. He's like a really old guy. The whole idea of Depths is that you go there when you die. It's like a multiverse. It's sort of like the dumping ground of the multiverse, and people sometimes end up there when they die, usually when they die untimely. But Billy's whole plot was that he died of old age surrounded by his family. I did specifically because that was different. The thing about Billy, the greatest wizard ever, is that he dressed like a hillbilly from the South, right? Just like white t-shirt, blue jeans, had a hat that said Pabst Blue Ribbon on it. And the whole idea was, the only thing about him that was weird is that he carried around a really gaudy wizard staff and insisted that he was his platoon's archwizard in Vietnam. But every reference he makes to old Earth is that it was normal old Earth. So it's this nonsensical thing where he's a wizard with arcane powers, but he behaves like he's from normal Earth and that it's normal Earth history, right? Everybody really, really liked this character. I'm not going to go deep into the character, you know, other than I will say my cheapest spell was called Fireball. For 1 mana, I could make a spout of Fireball whiskey. But the idea of this character was really fun for everyone because he was kind of over the top, kind of ridiculous, super America themed. What ended up happening is multiple different people afterwards started wanting to make characters that were way over the top, America-themed, patriot, copycat characters. And a lot of other people are like, you're killing it. Like it's funny because it's so out of place. As soon as everyone's doing it, it's not particularly funny or interesting.
It's what game companies don't understand.
It's
everything's about but
everything's a battle royale, everything's a survival craft, everything's a Hades, everything's a Vampire Survivor.
It's hard. I feel like some people just have a hard time understanding that sometimes the uniqueness of a thing is what gives it its flavor. And when that flavor is gone, it's probably not as good as you think it is. the rest of it is not as interesting. It doesn't taste as good. What a hillbilly in like rural England is very cool because, well, you've never seen someone like that. You go down south, now it's not so cool.
Now it's everyone. Well, now you're the interesting one because
Yeah.
you're not that.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, no, exactly. And like, the thing that people don't understand is that dynamics are what make something interesting. You know, I remember Mike ran a D&D game, and the problem we were having is that nobody was playing a protagonist, right? So like we had this party of people and everyone was playing a supporting character. So then nobody was the protagonist. Nobody was like doing the talking. Nobody was sort of like leading the plot. And you can say, well, everyone's supposed to be the protagonist. The party's the protagonist. That's not really how it works, right? If you're playing a character who's supposed to be reactionary, you're going to keep trying to do that. And if there's nothing to react to because nobody will stand front and center, people start to get frustrated as players. So I said, all right, you know what, Michael, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to retire this character. I'm going to make the world's most cliche protagonist. and the reason that works was because then other people in the party were not cliche protagonists. They were normal people, which meant that they would react to my being a special snowflake. And this was on purpose. Everybody agreed. You know, we all sat down and I said, okay, listen, we need a protagonist. I'm going to make a protagonist. I'm going to make a half angel, half demon main character chosen by this god for the whole purpose of giving us something that is so crazy that Mike has something to play with, to drive the plot. So then you guys need to play people. And they were like, okay.
Cliches are very interesting because people hear them and they automatically think bad.
Right.
Can't be cliche, but I feel like they can be done very well. I feel like sometimes people use cliches a bit to just copy paste. I push them, but I do feel like they have a place, and they exist for a reason. They were unique before they were a cliche.
Yeah, they were unique before they were a cliche, and the reason that they keep happening is because they keep working.
Yeah,
they keep working. It's something you can actually work with, and I agree completely. I think one of the worst problems of the modern era in film, we've talked about this before, is everyone wants to subvert your expectation. So now if subverting your expectation is exactly what you expect, therefore you're never subverted.
I don't like the idea of playing with expectations because I feel like that sort of leads to a bad method of creating a story. You should make a story that feels satisfying. Except who is that guy? Who's like the guy's like, I'm going to make every ending a twist.
Oh, fucking M. Night Shyamalama.
Except if you're M. Night Shyamalan, you want to make everything a twist. But I feel like stories should be made in a way that
he should not want to do that. Then his films would be slightly better.
Yeah, I feel like stories should be made in a way that's satisfying. Maybe you don't necessarily expect what happens, but it makes sense to you. It should feel like placing the last puzzle piece in your brain. Yeah,
I agree. I think cliches definitely have a place in plots. They can make things interesting. You know, why did isekais get popular, right? As anime, right? It's like, well, it's cliche, it's over and over, but some isekais are actually quite engaging, and some of them are not, you know, and it's whether or not you've used your cliche correctly. In an example of that D&D game, we all sat down and said, what is the type of game we want? What is the type of game Mike wants to run? And we sat down, we talked about what the city was, and we started defining, like, okay, so this guy, my other friend, made a character who was an Eldritch Knight, and he's like, okay, so what if there was like a giant, this is the city whose patron deity is the like angel of knowledge. So what if the biggest building in the city was a grand library, and we ripped off the super library from Final Fantasy XIV and said, like, what if this was here? And then I started going, well, what if my character, being sort of like an outcast of this sort of chosen one type thing, spends a lot of time in the deep part of the library? Oh yeah, and so then my character knows you because you're always in there, and I'm a library knight. I'm a knight who guards the library because it's like the greatest repository of knowledge in the land. And so they have literal Eldritch Knights whose job is just to be the guardians of this library. And that slowly brought the party together, is how we figured out what our interconnected thing was. And me being this cliched character gave everyone else a way of saying, okay, well, who am I to that dynamic? Which then gave Mike something. It's like, okay, well, my character wants to be a hero. They're this cliched character, and they don't want to just be a figurehead in this city, like look at our person chosen by our deity. So I would take quests, and that would be the motivation. And then everyone's like, well, I want to guard this person because they're young and impressionable and important, so I'm going to guard them. And that gave Mike the ability to create storylines, create plots around that, create other NPCs investments. So when a cliche exists, it can be a really good jumping point for everyone else involved to flesh out, their characters, their world, or even give them a jumping off point for creating stories. Whereas, if you're always trying to subvert expectations, you're spending a whole lot of time on trying to not be something that you don't spend a lot of time being other things.
I think cliches are very cool because they help you pre-understand a relationship between two people. Because relationships are
fairly cliched in real life.
Relationships are fairly cliched, but they're very important to storytelling because you have to know someone to get somewhere.
Yeah.
And a lot of you mentioned before contrast, like the differences, people who don't really fit the same mold, that also creates very interesting relationships. That's why people say opposites attract, because in stories, two opposite people create a very interesting dynamic.
Right.
They create a dynamic that someone could make a story about that.
Someone could make a story about that. Well, the thing about that is that it goes both ways too. Sometimes two people being very similar makes something interesting because of the way they bounce off of each other. You get the buddy storyline, right?
Yeah.
Whenever I play, I think tabletops is blending to this because it gives you, I've got a lot of examples of it, right? Is like, you can go both ways. Right now I'm playing in a tabletop game where one of the characters is my ideological opponent and we argue. But over the course of the campaign, we're starting to become slowly more aligned and understanding, right? To each other's perspectives. At the same time, it can be fun in past campaigns where someone was sort of my buddy. Like we were always on the same page, and that meant we caused trouble together, right? And that creates a more interesting story, and that's the thing about life, is that cliches exist all the time. And it's whether or not that cliche feels good for what your objective is your objective to make, funny buddy cop comedies are funny because they're buddy cops. You know what I mean? Well, Bad Boys has how many movies? It wouldn't get made if it wasn't watched. It earns money.
Yeah. It's like, it may not be the Oscars, but I'll be honest, most of the Oscars is shit.
Well, the Oscars is just a circle jerk. It's it's everybody doing they're in a circle doing a Dutch rudder. Very
funny. Well, but the relationship is kind of what sells you on it, because it's that warm feeling inside that, one might say, immerses you into the story.
Because that warm feeling inside is what they get at the Oscars too.
Yeah. But
Well, eventually the warm feeling is on the outside.
Well, I meant the feeling inside is, like, anyway.
Yeah, but I feel like relationship is like another thing a lot of games kind of miss out on, because it helps you become immersed with the story that you're part of. Like in Halo, the different people that you interact with Cortana all the time, and she reacts to what you do and the crazy shit that you try to pull off. There's a Sergeant Johnson and how you interact with him. They're all these different characters that you interact with all the time, and you will feel a connection with them because they're well voice acted and they integrate well with the story. Other games, you might just see people talking at each other.
Right.
And it's like, why do I care?
Yeah, why do I care about this? Actually, in Aviatic Factor, there's a couple of characters you run into. It's I forgot the guy's name. It's Janet and something. But it's just this like older balding guy and Janet, this woman with like a ponytail. And every time you run into them, they're in like the next zone that you had to go into. And they're trying to, they were trapped somewhere. And they're sort of progressing through the facility as you do, trying to find their own way out, right? And they have these back and forth dialogues that are just kind of really funny. you know, and you'll find files in the world that talk about the shit they got up to. They're just these two coworkers who were very involved. They were in the same department, you know, and he's kind of like a little bit of like a semi-nervous kind of guy, and she's kind of like a nonchalant, like maybe makes you think of a chain smoker, you know what I mean, even though she's not smoking. And the dialogue in Aviatic Factory isn't very good, but every time I'd see them, at first I was like, what's the deal with these people? And as the story went on, it's like, hey, it's them again, you know, and there's a point in the game where they're standing next to a water cooler in one area, and after you pass by that area, if you go back to the water cooler, there's two bobbleheads of each of them and a mini water cooler that you can take back to your base. And finding them each time, you became more and more invested in like, well, what have they been doing to get here?
And they're not even like, the best part about that is they're not like, it's not the king or some big person. They're just people in the world, and that those are the best types of people to have in a story. It's just like, hey, it's that guy, he's always around, and sometimes like he's like, hey guy, cheer up, I don't know what's going on, but like it's like, here's like a better shoe or whatever, but it's that guy that you know is there and he's a decent guy and you like him. But
they're just normal people. They're not super important. They're not even progressing the plot. Talking to them might give you a hint to what's going on in the area, but like that's even the hints that they give are just them just pontificating about their own situation. You know, and but they're just normal people. They're not special.
And people, I feel like a lot of people really gush over those small characters. I feel like if you look around, you'll find a lot of fan fiction about side characters that maybe you wrote, you didn't really think too much about them, but they'll have whole different stories of like, oh, what happened to this guy afterwards? Did he ever get married or whatever? But
yeah, the side characters can be just as interesting as the main characters. In fact, I find that one of the most fun parts about being a DM, again, talking about tabletop, is thinking about, you know, if the players are in an area with a lot of side characters who are consistent, right? So like a base of operations in a city, like who are the people that live in this city? What do they do? You know, I've always thought it was really interesting when, you know, players go to like, I don't know, the same shop, right? And I start to think about like who the shop owner is, or maybe there's like an eatery near where they live, and you know the players, you know, my players like to role play being a person, so they don't just subsist exclusively off rations. So sometimes they'll go buy a real meal, like a human, and I'll actually describe the kinds of like customers that are at their favorite place to go. And then if sometimes the players will become really attached to like the old guy who's there every Sunday. What's he up to? And that'll give me an opportunity to go, what if I could create a side story about this guy? You know, and maybe there's a book he's looking for, you know what I mean? Or something.
Yeah. And that's what makes them very cool. And that's what I wish Final Fantasy had more of.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, personally, I feel like all these things we've discussed are really what immersion is actually about.
Yeah. Because what immersion is it lets you let go of whatever real world problems you're having and really
be invested in this world with no strings attached. You can just enjoy this moment to moment, whatever the fuck you're doing. I would agree. Yeah. And I would like to see more of that come back to video games. It still exists to some degree, but I think that when I compare the amount of immersion I experience in recently released games versus what I used to, I mean, you know, people will always say, oh, the past was always better, but I think it's pretty immeasurably true that games have become more arcadey, more churn and burn, with less really thought out, deep, immersive experiences. They still exist, but they're harder to come by.
Yeah, I feel like part of it is it's just kind of what the big companies have seen as successful. So like, oh, we're just going to do this. It's the kind of the cycle of whatever they see that's big and successful is going to be what comes next.
How do we make that, but without spending much money?
The problem is that making something that's with a lot of heart, as we've said before, and all these little relationships takes a bit more than let's create a successful product.
Yeah, I would agree completely. Well, that's everything I wanted to talk about today. Do you feel there's anything else to say?
No, I hope the people watching were immersed.
I hope that this was an immersive experience for you, the viewer. If you made it to the end, let us know in the comments what's the most immersive experience you've had in a game. I'd love to know. Now, personally, I'm going to immerse myself in not letting you get away with those comments earlier. When this camera's off, we're hashing this out.
It's October. This is the time for skinwalkers to be appreciated.
Yeah, and I'm going to appreciate all the bullshit you said earlier. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
I'm going to get myself immersed in another skin. I'll see you guys later.